Greetings and welcome to the second official episode of Morrowind's Abandoned Projects, where we take a look at some of the abandoned mods that have been, just uploaded in an incomplete state over the years. And trust me, there's just a lot of those out there. And hopefully, by giving them some renewed attention, someone might well take them up and try and finish them. For our first episode, we took a look at the famed Pleasiad Expanded mod, which was a major town expansion overhaul. And today we're going to be taking a look at another relatively famous mod, Harshlands by Spacecoke. And this was a massive landmass mod last reportedly in development back in 2009, when it was released in a very early alpha state. And the alpha version is still available for download from ModDB, and you'll find a download link down in the video description below. And now it must be mentioned that the permission criteria has not been defined for this mod. There's no mention of it in the README file, but having said that, Spacecoke replied to a comment on his YouTube channel saying that the mod was basically available for anyone to use. So, just keep in mind that this is in fact a open permission mod, even though it doesn't exactly say that anywhere in the README file. So for those potentially interested in restarting this project or using material from it, you can pretty much just, go right on ahead. Though I would advise, at least contacting Spacecoke and letting him know that you are working on his mod or using materials from it, just as a courtesy. And really, he's only actively available on YouTube. So, in order to contact him, you might want to just consider sending him a message on his YouTube channel, which of course you'll find a link to down below in the video description as well. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started here. And first things first, we're going to take a look at the map here. And Harshlands is, to say the least, a really massive landmass mod, almost half the size of Vvardenfell, reaching all the way from Sedanine and Ebonheart up to almost Solstein. And of course, this will conflict with Town Rebuilt and dozens of other landmass mods out there. For the purpose of this video, we're going to divide our showcase up into the 4 principal regions of Harshlands. Starting with the mod's namesake, Harsh Outlands, which occupies most of the northern and central western parts of this island chain. And this is a pretty massive region. It'll probably take up a good chunk of our showcase here, since most of the actual finished exterior content of this mod can be found either in the Harsh Outlands or in the Montalar or Drizzle regions, and it has to be stated that this is a very, very early alpha build. Pretty much all this mod is currently is the exterior landscape. There are no interiors other than 1 or 2 demo interiors, and there's a lot of other stuff missing as well. The landscaping isn't even completely finished yet, and there's some areas where that's pretty obvious, as we'll see in a bit. But anyway, we're starting out in the Harsh Outlands here, because this area is by far the most instantly recognizable out of any in this mod. A lot of the promotional screenshots and 2 trailers were made primarily of this region that gained a fair bit of attention in the community back in the day, mostly for the unique usage and design of the Daedric ruins here, as well as just the epic, appearance of the landscape. And I would highly recommend checking out those trailers. They do a much better job, really, of presenting this mod in its full glory, even if the aspect ratio on the videos are just a bit off. You'll find links to those down in the video description below, and cards to them here in our YouTube video. But anyway, there's also a link to the main trailer in the end screen for this video, so just, that's something to keep in mind, and I would, again, highly recommend watching it. And while I'm just recommending things to check out, I would also advise you check out some of the other videos on Spacecoke's YouTube channel. He had a really nice scenic Morrowind video series going for a little while that just showed off the atmosphere and locations various places in Morrowind. And they're kind of a nice and relaxing watch, but anyway, I'm getting pretty far off topic here, so getting back to the actual showcase, Harshlands is really a mod that is ideally designed for really far distant land settings. Everything on this landmass has been built with a view towards being able to see just about everything else on the island chain here. And this gives the landmass some truly just epic vistas, as again you'll see if you check out the trailers for this mod. But unfortunately, my distant land settings aren't quite up to the task of showing off everything here. So again, just watch the trailer if you'd like to see how everything is supposed to look. Now you can sort of see what I'm talking about here. Harshlands is a landmass mod built on a grand scale. Everything is massive, including most notably the ruins that you'll find here. Far from the self-contained ruins of Vvardenfell, the Daedric ruins of Harshlands can span several exterior cells, with outward walls and tall, massive central shrine spires and all that. And more than anything, Harshlands is perhaps most notable for its incredibly unique and creative exterior designs. There's just a lot of cool locations in this mod, like this one here, that's sort of a massive and incredibly tall vertical hill with Daedric ramps and pillars and all that, and a shrine at the very top. And this location is just incredibly iconic, and you can just sort of imagine what it would be like as one big exterior dungeon, with the player having to fight the way up to the top of this, spire here in order to find some famous treasure at the top, or perhaps some big boss guy to, fight. There's a lot of just epic areas like these in this mod, especially in this first region here. And speaking of, here's another Daedric shrine. This one is in the middle of a lake, and with the right distant land settings, you would actually be able to see a number of just towering Daedric spires in the distance from here, including the one we just saw. But, with my just lackluster settings, all you can really see is a vague outline. And if it seems like there's a lot of these Daedric ruins here, that's because pretty much the entire northern half of Harshlands is basically one long continuous chain of Daedric shrines and ruins, which with a distant land setting of maybe 30 or 40 exterior cells, you would be able to appreciate the just full epic effect that they create here. And anyway, we're just going to take a look at a couple more areas in the Harsh Outlands region here. Before moving on to one of the, other 3 regions in this mod, and towards the northern part of this island chain, you'll find a couple more of these just massive Daedric shrine towers. And one of the things you really just got to appreciate here about Harshlands is that there's really a lot of creativity just going on, specifically with using Daedric resources. Because to be honest, the exterior vanilla assets for Daedric shrines are pretty limited. There's maybe, 6 or 7 different building variations. But Spacecoke here has combined them to just create some truly unique and epic looking areas. So, while it may not necessarily be practical to try and finish this massive landmass mod, especially since there's pretty much no interiors and it would take years to build all the interiors that this island needs, Harshlands is still a pretty, useful resource just for getting some inspiration and ideas for your own mods. I mean, it's almost like a playground of different design ideas are just ripe for possibly emulating, or using as inspiration for your own mods. But, well, that's just my advice on the matter, and we do have one last, small area here to take a look at, before we move on to the next region, and that's the start of a Hlaalu city here, along the coast. And you're going to notice this a lot more later on in this video, but for the most part, there's not really a whole lot of finished exterior settlements or cities. Most of them, like this one, are just in very early stages of development, with just enough to give you an idea that there's supposed to be a city here, according to the, author's original vision. But for the most part, none of the city planning or, city layout has really been done yet, so that's still pretty much all up in the air. And anyway, just moving on, the next region we're going to be taking a look at here is the Montalor region, which consists of the central mountain chain and also a bit of the southern flatlands, and it's the second largest region of Harshlands, and also one of the most complete in terms of just exterior design. Though again, you'll note that there's still several areas that are nowhere near finished. And speaking of, we're going to start down in the southern part of the Montalor region, which is by far the most incomplete part of this region here, just as a way to build up towards the central mountains, which are, practically their own region anyway. And you're going to notice a few areas like this, where there's large open flat plains without a whole lot of detailing. It's really hard to say whether or not this is the intended final design for this area, or if the author planned to do some more detailing later. But either way, it is a bit empty, especially compared to areas further north. And for the most part, you'll notice that this region is kind of divided off into 2 main areas, the more mountainous zone, which is separated off by a river here, and the more flatlands area to the south, that has a bit less terrain detailing, but otherwise is fairly similar to the Ashlands on Vvardenfell. And this southern area once again contains what appears to be the outlines of a planned city, with a duplicate of the Temple of Almalexia, and an area that might be, I don't know, I guess a docks or something. But much like the Hlaalu city we saw before, this area isn't even in the early planning stages yet. There's no buildings, no clutter, no detailing, and most of the cities or outlined cities that you'll find in Harshlands has the same sort of early development look. And this is one of the reasons why it's perhaps a little unrealistic to think a single modder could finish off this whole landmass, because aside from just, needing interiors, there's a lot of this exterior work that needs to be done with city design and development that will doubtless take a fair amount of time. I mean, there might actually be someone working on this project already. I seem to recall getting a message from one modder or another that might have started work on finishing up Harshlands But again, it's a really big mod, and there's a lot that really still needs to be done, from just finishing up some of the remaining exterior areas to city design and development, and I'd estimate this mod would probably need about, I don't know, maybe 600 unique interiors, including 60 dungeon interiors to cover all the ruins, planned towns, cities, and villages here, not to mention the occasional isolated farmstead. And then you'd still have to worry about quests, and for a landmass of this size, you probably need at least 40 to 50 quests, if not more. And not that I'm trying to discourage anyone, of course, but this is a rather massive undertaking, and anyone seriously looking to take over on Harshlands will most likely need a sizable modding team. The great thing about Harshlands, when compared to some of the other abandoned landmass mods out there, is that it is mostly exterior complete, unlike Vvardenfell, and the alpha is available for download, unlike the continent of Yesterbreeze, which has sadly been lost to time. So it does have a few things going for it that might make it a potential project to just sort of revive. But, well, you know, modders do tend to get a bit overly ambitious about the amount they can accomplish sometimes. So trust me when I say this is far more than any one modder can reasonably handle. You will definitely need a modding team if you want to take this on. But sorry about that, I've sort of gone off on a rant here, so getting back to the actual video here, and we're going to just gradually be making our way up the mountain here, and you'll notice the terrain in this area is pretty well detailed, with lots of rocks, dead trees, and the like, and this is probably one of the more detailed mountain ranges available in really any mod outside of Tower Built and Lithonia. You can see the author put in a ton of work with just creating a sort of dynamic and rocky terrain along the mountain here that just really makes it quite epic looking. And much like in the Harsh Outlands, you will find a number of Daedric ruins along the sides of the mountain here, as well as a set of Duma ruins along the very rim and the top, with a truly massive and towering just central Duma pillar that just goes right off into the sky here. As you might imagine, with the right distant land settings, you'll be able to see this tower from just about anywhere in Harshlands, or even western Vvardenfell. And much like Red Mountain, the top here is an active volcano that the Duma ruins are just sort of built over, with a number of Duma bridges going over the lava here. And just moving down the mountain a bit, there's another Duma ruin here with a, well, rather unique appearance to say the least. And again, really none of these ruins have any interiors yet. So right now they're mostly just, you know, interesting exterior landmarks that you can explore, but can't enter, of course. Now we're just going to make our way back down the mountain here, where you'll find a few more Daedric ruins just scattered about, and gosh, one of the things I just absolutely really love about Harshlands here is that it just has a really good sense of verticality. The mountain here has all sorts of cliffs, switchback trails, and precariously perched ruins overlooking sudden drops, and all this verticality here just, you know, really adds to the epic and awe-inspiring experience of exploring this land. And yes, there's that word again, verticality. Seems like I mention that at least once in every video we do, but you know, when you're designing anything, if you just add a little bit of verticality to it, it just makes everything better. Just trust me on that, verticality is the secret ingredient to making amazing mods. Just add a sprinkle of verticality to the design to anything, and it makes it a lot better. Now I have one final area I just wanted to take a look at here before moving on to our next region, and that's this sort of ruinous Daedric shrine connected to the main mountain chain here by a custom-built Daedric bridge, made using various Daedric wall pieces, and that kind of again just shows some of the creative things you can build with Daedric ruins. And again, like pretty much all the various ruins and shrines in Harshlands, this one is pretty epic and cool looking, with a grand exterior appearance and perched on top of a fairly large hill to, again, just give that sense of verticality we all love and obsess over. But that pretty much wraps up the Montalar region here. Next we're going to be taking a look at the smallest region in Harshlands, the Giselle coastline, which hugs the base of the mountain here and basically shares the same swampy appearance of the Bitter Coast region on Vvardenfell. And we're going to start out along the northern tip of the Giselle region, where you'll find a small shack village, and there's actually two towns that sort of are laid out for this region, one to the south and one to the north. There's a fair bit of terrain detailing here. You can see where a docks area was planned, though much of the upper village here is still obviously in the very early planning and layout stages. It kind of looks like the author might have planned to have a central market here in the middle of town, but otherwise, obviously, things are still pretty incomplete. But moving on and going down a bit to the south here, much of the Giselle region shares a rather close border with the Bitter Coast region, so naturally you'll see a bit more, swamps here, as well as some inner streams and ponds that are sort of caught between the outer swamps and the base of the mountain here. The Drizzle region here is really a fairly narrow band of land, basically one long and narrow stretch of beaches and swamps going down the entire length of the mountain slopes here. There are a few roads that go up the side of the mountain from the swampy lowlands here, but for the most part these swamps are backed by the nearly vertical cliff face of the Montalor region. There's a few little hills and outcroppings here divided off a bit from the main mountain chain that compose part of the Drizzle region, which is otherwise fairly low-lying. And you'll find a couple of isolated houses and ruins out here as well, including a fairly strange Dwemer tower that comes pretty close to the Vvardenfell mainland. And again, normally with the proper distant land settings, you'd be able to see all the way up the mountain in the background here. And this will just create an epic view, but you'll have to just check out the mod trailer if you want to see how this mod should look, since my computer just, can't handle rendering such a large distance. And anyway, there's a lot of pretty cool and isolated locations in Harshlands. But this video is already getting a bit on the long side, so we're just going to skip ahead a bit. We don't have too much more to show off here. As I mentioned before, there's another village along the southern border of this region, and unlike most of the towns in Harshlands, there's actually a bit of a, layout here, though obviously incomplete, and the shacks here do need to be lowered a bit into the ground. But you can clearly see what the author was planning, and it is a rather, scenic place right at the base of the mountain here. And it would probably make for a pretty epic setting to start an adventure. And now the final region we'll be taking a look at here is the region of Free Green, which extends from Ebonheart up to the base of the mountain and the Montalor region. And truth be told, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time looking at this region because it is by far the most incomplete region in this mod, and there's only about 4 or 5 notable locations here. But anyway, we're just going to start out at the southern tip, where you'll find a small imperial harbor. Again, largely, unfinished, and this was probably meant to be expanded a bit, but it's hard to say for sure. The docks are probably meant for ships coming in from Ebonheart, I would imagine. Outside of the harbour, though, you'll find a mostly green landscape with trees, bits of grass, flowers, and other bits of flora. And as you might imagine, this region is called Free Green because it's the only really green region in Harshlands. And most of the landscape in Harshlands, as we've seen already, is a fairly drab grey, so green is just a bit different. And now just sort of up the road from the harbour here, you'll find another little area that appears to have been planned for some sort of settlement, right here on top of this hill. It's a sort of walled-in space, probably meant for a Raydoran village of some sort, but obviously there's no buildings as of yet. And there's also a few more Dwemer ruins here along the southern coast, partially submerged, and this might be the only real dungeon location in this region. And like I said before, the Free Green region isn't particularly well populated with stuff yet. There's not a whole lot of landmarks here or anything. And finally, there's also a layout for a Telvanni-style town here, which at this point just consists of a walled-in area and the start of a central tower area, but otherwise, again, doesn't really have any real buildings. This region is really going to take a fair bit of exterior development still to get up to, the same level of quality as the rest of the island chain here. And so really all the regions are going to need at least some proper city planning and development. So clearly there's quite a lot of work left to do. And that's pretty much it for this video. Again, this is a pretty big undertaking. The project is free for someone to pick up if they want, but realistically, this is going to need a fully staffed modding team to really finish up this landmass in a decent amount of time. And anyway, our next episode will be on the city of Blackhawk, and you can expect that in about a month, I would say. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.